Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I had reported to work on this particular Monday, where I'm the site supervisor for an armed security account, only to discover that the blasted idiots that work the night shift had not only left me an empty coffee pot, a big mistake, but had entirely cleaned me out of coffee, leaving me naught but an empty container devoid of my much-needed morning caffeine. The inconsiderate so-and-sos. Grumbling, I go off to the local market to buy some caffeinated goodness to keep my heart beating through my busy day. Mind you, I'm in uniform, which means black pants, dress shirt, with my badge and various security emblems, my duty belt with firearm, baton, handcuffs and so on. For the sake of those squeamish folk out there that go all white in the face when they see a firearm, I have also donned a windbreaker with security written across the back in 6-inch high, day glow yellow letters. In other words, I looked nothing like any of the folk who worked at this market, whose uniform consisted entirely of a green apron. Now mind you, I probably could have handled this better, but I was grumpy and it was a Monday morning without coffee after all. So I'm standing just inside the door of the market reading the chalkboard where they have written their menu for the small cafe they run, when this entitled wench, hereafter referred to as entitled wench, on her cell phone, walks up to me and tries to hand me a slip of paper. Okay, I'm a bit confused, but I take it and give it a look. But as soon as I do, this wench makes a little shooing motion and walks away and sits down at a bench by the door. Never says a word to me, doesn't even really look at me, barely acknowledges my existence, and just walks off. So I'm kinda annoyed, you might say. Look at this piece of paper and it's a list of, you guessed it, groceries. What the hell? So I wander off and politely inquire as to what exactly this is and why she had seen fit to hand it to me. She says, "My grocery list, of course. Fetch them for me. I'm in a hurry and can't be bothered. I'm on a very important phone call." And again, with a shoe in motion. Now, I've been going to this market for nigh onto 5 years, and I can assure you, they do not fetch your groceries for you. So after some consideration, I very carefully rolled her list into a tight little bowl, dropped it on her lap, and loudly growled at her to get off her lazy butt and do her own shopping, turn around and walk off. I hear her screeching out something behind me, but I just ignore her and keep walking. Now at this point, I am seriously thinking that this wench will take the hint, see the day glow letters on my jacket and buy a clue. But oh no, this wench is just not that smart. She instead chases me down and starts yelling about how she's going to get me fired and I need to fetch her groceries right now. Trying to remain calm, I politely, honest, but forcefully tell her again, very clearly, "I don't work here. Do your own shopping, lady." And I leave. Thinking that's the end of it, off I go to get a cup of wonderful hot coffee at the cafe and then move on to the Isle of Heaven, where I'm busily perusing their fine selection of lovely roasted goodness when who should appear but the entitled wench was a gentleman in tow. She's loudly berating him about his lazy workers and demanding I be fired on the spot. This poor gentleman looks confusedly at me, then at her, and then inform her he doesn't work here. We don't employ security, ma'am. Being a bit of a jerk, I wave at her, give her a big smile, and I agree with him. And she absolutely loses it, goes completely insane, starts screaming that I need to fetch her groceries right now or she is going to get us all fired, and that she's an important person and how we will regret treating her this way, blah blah blah. The gentleman finally gets a word in edgewise and again informs her that I do not work there and I don't have to do anything for her. That is when I can see a dim light bulb go off in her head, and can see a glimmer, tiny but there, of understanding begin to dawn in her eyes. This dim light is however quickly squashed by her overinflated sense of entitlement as she promptly replies in the snottiest voice possible. I kid you not. She goes with, "Well, he's obviously a menial of some sort. Make him." To say this got me a tad riled up is perhaps an understatement, so I shoved a one-finger salute into her face and told her empathetically to go screw herself. That gentleman quickly got between us and loudly told her, in no uncertain terms, that 1. Again, I don't work there, and 2. That she needed to get the hell out of this store right now. The entitled wench literally screamed at the top of her lungs, no words, just rage, and started demanding to see someone in charge so she could get us all fired and someone better get her groceries. And how she was going to sue us all. That we didn't know how important she was. The gentleman, who I had naturally assumed was the manager, promptly got right back in her face, and he yelled over her that he was the owner. His family had owned the place for 20 years, and they had never in all that time done someone shopping for them. Ever. He then grabbed her by the arm and literally dragged her off towards the front of the store. At that point, I was just shaking my head in disbelief, but I just went ahead, made my selection of buying coffees, and wandered over to stand in line to pay for it. As I'm there at the register, the owner came up to me and actually apologized for this woman's behavior, and we shared that what the hell moment. Actually ended up just laughing at how stupid this woman was, or crazy, either way. He even tried to let me have the coffee for free, but I thanked him and told him it wasn't his fault, that this crazy lady was a nut, and that I was fine with paying for it. Now, you would think that was the end of it. I mean, it was crazy, but weird stuff happens. People are idiots, whatever. But oh no, dear readers, it would appear that we have both underestimated the depths of this woman's craziness. Because as we walked through the door to the outside world, who, to our astonishment, was there waiting for us? The entitled witch. It turns out she had actually called the police on us, and the witch was out there screaming at the officer demanding that we be arrested for not serving her, and how she wanted us both fired, and that she was going to sue, and that someone had better get her groceries right now. My jaw dropped, I don't mind saying it, and I was beyond shocked. I honestly started laughing at that point. This lady was certifiably nuts. Because of my job, we happened to work closely with the local PD, so I actually recognized the officer that responded to the call and gave the officer Betsy a wave when she looked at me. She gave me a grin and walked over asking me about exactly what the hell was going on here. We both gave our side of the story, and the owner asked that she be removed from the property. Please. She was at this point causing a scene. Betsy just rolled her eyes, walked over and told the entitled wench that she needed to leave right now immediately, or she would be charged with trespassing. Now, you ever have that moment when you can see something bad start to happen, but your mind just can't quite believe it's actually occurring? Well, I saw it start, clear as day, as this woman reared back and started to go off again, and yep, there it was. She actually jammed her finger into Officer Betsy's sternum. Not once, but twice. Might have been a third time, but Officer Betsy had, at that point, picked her up, flipped her over, and dropped her on her back, landed on top of her, had her handcuffed in record time, got back up, opened her door, slid the entitled woman into the back of her patrol car, and slammed the door on her. We all just stood there shaking our heads in total disbelief as this woman started to scream and thrash about and kick at the windows of the squad car. She was still doing it as Officer Betsy drove off to the station too. Saw Officer Betsy later on that day and she told me that this woman was still throwing a fit when they got to the station and fought the officers there like hell, until they ended up stuffing her into a control chair. She was later transported to the hospital for a psych evaluation. No idea what happened to her after that. A recent petty revenge story made me remember this experience from my teenage years, but this one definitely went all the way to pro. So just before my senior year in high school, I turned 18 and bought a car with my saved up years of babysitting money. I'd have liked one sooner, but my mother absolutely refused. At 18, in my big act of teenage rebellion, I went out and bought one. A couple months later, Auntie Witch suddenly left her job from several states away and moved in with us, without her car. It cost less if she waited 6 months until spring to get it shipped. Something about snowbird travel patterns. She was cheap and a user as well as a witch. As a result, I was expected to share my recently acquired car with Auntie Witch until hers arrived. This seemed deeply unfair, but nonetheless it was agreed upon that she could use it for appointments and job interviews since I could take the school bus. I needed to be warned in advance because my bus stop was the second one of the route. It left a lot earlier than I needed to if driving directly, and I liked sleeping. You may be wondering about now what this has to do with an alarm clock. Auntie Witch is one of those people who likes to rile people up, then mock them for getting pissed off. She's always got a complaint, harsh words, and is feuding with somebody over something. Once she moved in with us, her complaint was my alarm clock. My room shared a wall with hers. The alarm was waking her mooching, unemployed broke butt up every morning, and that pissed her off. Couldn't I just go to bed earlier so I didn't need an alarm clock? The morning schedule at our house went something in the ballpark of this. 5:30 a.m. my workaholic mother leaves for the office. 5:45 my alarm goes off if taking the bus to school. 6:15 I leave if taking the bus to school, and 6:45 I leave if driving to school. 1:30 never. Auntie Witch is unemployed but needs to be anywhere. Auntie Witch approached my workaholic mother about the horrific inconvenience of my using an alarm clock. Her solution was that my mother should wake me up every day at 5:30 before leaving. My mother told her to try earplugs or work it out between us. Workaholic mother was massively non-confrontational and wanted no part of an Auntie Witch dispute. Auntie Witch started sneaking into my room to unplug the clock after I fell asleep. I am a hard sleeper, so she pulled this off a few times. I had a good number of tardies before I figured out it wasn't a new cat who initially got blamed. Woke up to see her standing over my bed one night. Creepy. I screamed like a banshee, waking the whole house. She claimed sleepwalking, and my mother let her get away with that lame excuse. I endeavored to solve the problem myself with some super glue. Not the brightest move I made. That house got sold with a bonus electric blue alarm clock, and Auntie Witch started turning the alarm off instead of unplugging it. So I started sleeping with my alarm clock tucked between my pillow. No way Auntie Witch could do anything to it without waking me up. She was pissed at having not gotten her way, and never let anything go ever. Auntie Witch's next move was to get up when the alarm went off and race into the only bathroom with a shower. It was closer to her room than mine, so she always beat me there. She'd stash magazines in there to sit on a commode, reading until right around 6:20. This is after the school bus has left, but still before I need to leave driving directly. Once I was taking a very rushed shower, she'd steal my keys and take my car, wherever the hell the unemployed go to drive around all day. She claimed that I just wasn't paying attention when she said she needed the car. She wasn't telling me. When my mother wasn't around, she made snide remarks that if she was woken up, she had just as much right to the bathroom as I did. I could solve this problem by not waking her up. In addition to this, she would take my car evenings and weekends, always right before I had babysitting gigs. It never returned with more than fumes in the gas tank. She had to call roadside assistance twice for running out of gas because she'd guessed wrong on how far she could get on fumes. Needless to say, I was pissed. Also massively inconvenienced and a lot poorer. I had to beg friends for last-minute rides or take a cab. She continued to blame me, and my mother stayed out of it. We got into a cat and mouse game with my keys, where I eventually kept them on me at all times, even in the shower. This was an old car some years back. No electronic keys were harmed. The keys came in the shower with me because a counter wasn't enough to stop her from pulling the bathroom lock, pocket door, travel, and coming in while I was showering to take them. Again, creepy. This eventually resulted in her asking in advance to borrow my car for a job interview that probably wasn't. She went to the key shop and got my car keys copied. The next day, my keys safely back in my possession, she pulls a shower stunt again. She did it a lot, even when she wouldn't take my car, which was just a jerk. I head out to the driveway, keys in hands, and my car is not there. Legit thought she'd hot-wired it until I got home, and it showed no signs of tampering. I am not much for poking the bear, but it was time to have this out. Which quietly, smugly admitted to copying the key, called me a selfish witch who didn't know how to share, and many other unfortunate things I don't remember exactly. She wasn't giving it back. What was I going to do? I warned her that the car was mine and she did not have permission to use it ever again. This was a bridge too far for me. There would be consequences, and she laughed in my face. The next morning, my car was not in a driveway. I'd expected this. My friend's dad was a cop. I was practically a fixture in his house for a decade, and he was the closest thing I had to a father figure due to my own deadbeat dad. So I gave him a call, utterly distraught that the car I've worked so hard to get has been stolen from my driveway. He's very sympathetic. Did I mention my car had low jack? It was actually a very nice car. Back when it was new anyway. We do all the reporting and whatever it takes for the cops to find it with low jack. By mid-afternoon, they had found it in the parking lot of an outlet mall. I don't know what the full details of the encounter were, as I've heard multiple versions of this part of the story over the years. She had some kind of witch dizzy on them upon being accused of theft, including a tussle with an officer. It ended in charges of grand theft auto, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, and some kind of license-related thing because she'd never switched it to her new state of residence. Do not throw a witch dizzy at a cop. They don't like it much. As this all took some time, she didn't get arraigned that day, as her unemployed broke self had horrid credit and little money. She couldn't make bail. As I deleted her answering machine message begging my mother to come bail her out, my workaholic mother didn't even notice she was gone for almost a week. Once workaholic mommy did notice, I explained that my car had been stolen and that I had called the cops. I was handling the situation myself like she suggested. The look of dawning her was amazing. Then she shrugged and went back to avoiding all the confrontation. Which served 2 weeks in county lockup until she took a plea deal. I suspect they slowly walked her paperwork a bit. What happened after was glorious revenge. Witch's remaining savings were used up on all the fines and court fees, so she finally got around to shipping her car and engaging in a job hunt. One problem, she was previously a teacher. She'd yet to get her certification in her new state. Now she had a rap sheet and was unable to pass a background check. Whoops, time for a new career as a telemarketer. Which didn't bother me much after that. I learned years later that she only went after kids hard, and I had proved enough of an adult she realized there were consequences for her actions. We spent the next few months ignoring each other before I headed to college, and that's how a dispute over an alarm clock ended Witch's teaching career. Edited to answer a few repeated questions. What's up with your mother? Mental illness. She was not a bad person, she simply had almost no capacity to deal with conflict and retreated into her work as a coping mechanism. With time and understanding, I am sympathetic to her role. She has since passed away. Why didn't you call the cops sooner? I had never dealt with anybody so lacking boundaries like Auntie Witch before. I genuinely thought there was a limit, and I just had to handle things until we got there in the name of family harmony. It was also supposed to be temporary. I had college coming up quickly and she was supposed to find a job/apartment, so it was very time-bound. It's the nuclear option to call the police on a family member, and a very scary thing to contemplate at 18 years old. I also wasn't sure it would work, given she could claim I was confused about permission and the chances my mother would back me up were close to zero. Once I still had my keys in hand and no car in the driveway, that was a game changer in my eyes. Can we get more of an epilogue? There is not a lot to say. I went no contact with Auntie Witch after leaving for college. Between her prison stint and my departure, she ignored me and I returned the favor. I found out later that she only seriously picks on kids. I proved myself an adult who could deliver consequences for her actions. And now I spend the holidays with my husband's lovely family and visit the stable family members at other times. Somehow, I have hair washing to do every reunion. Oops. Fortunately, she's never gone back to teaching.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.